All right, so once again, what we're doing today is we're looking at how we're going to create this little character. In this case, I made a taco with a face. You do not have to make a face. If you've got time later on, you can add other details in there. For example, maybe there's some texture in your taco. Maybe you put a hot sauce bottle in the background, etc. So we're going to start with a couple of different things, a couple of new functions for you. So we're going to file new and just create a brand new letter size document. Again, that's easy for us to print out if we ever needed to print out and we know we're good to go with a letter size document already selected. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, oh, I definitely don't want that. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to learn a little bit more about this new window. He's called Pathfinder. You may need to use this black arrow to scroll down in order to get to it. So we've got our Pathfinder, and that Pathfinder is really, really, really helpful because it gives us these shape modes, and each shape mode does a slightly different thing. So you've got a unite function, and that unite function, let me just make a couple of shapes here. I'm going to go ahead and start off. Let me give it a fill, and then I'm going to give a slightly different shape. Give it a different fill so you can kind of see the, oops, sorry, well, we'll do it this way. So you can see the difference between them. So I'm going to click off of them. What I do is I go onto my selection tool. That is the keyboard shortcut of V. So as you're working, like for example, when I dragged one, I went to V to grab it and move it. So now I can actually move that. I do want them to overlap a little bit for this process. So again, I'm on my selection tool. I just click out here and I grab both of them and kind of just draw a box. You don't even have to draw a box around the entire thing like that. As long as this box touches that object, it will grab it, okay? So if I do that, I go ahead and I press the unite. What it's going to do is it's going to unite the two shapes into one. So if that is the entire shape I would need, there we go. And at that stage, I could fill it. I could give it an outer stroke of my choosing, and that would be my new shape. And again, that's unite. A quick reminder, we have an undo, but I want you to really focus on using the keyboard shortcut to undo, which is Control-Z. So Control-Z, you're going to see I'm stepping backwards. I'm going to go back to my two. They are still selected. I have this next shape mode, which is minus the object in front. So this object is in front, and what it's going to do is it's going to remove that from my object behind it. If I swapped places, if I selected it, right-clicked, and I go down to arrange, I can go ahead and bring it to the front. Again, draw a little box to grab them. And that's my new shape that I make with the minus in front, because now that yellow box was in front of the oval. Okay? So that's my minus the front. The next one, again, I've got this one called Intersect. Again, just hover over the top of the tool without clicking. It'll give you a little message, and it'll try to remind you of what that tool is and a little bit about what it does. Okay? That one, whatever is overlapping will stay behind. This one, whatever is overlapping will get removed. So this is now an empty space. If I were to put, let me just put another shape behind it. If I were to put a shape right there, let me fill that with something else. And I'm going to V, right click, arrange, and send to back. You see how it peeks through underneath that. So that is an empty space, okay? So those are the functions up at the top. The last function I really want you to be using for our taco is this little guy called divide. And this guy called divide does just that. It divides whatever is overlapping. It'll create a new section. So right here, I have divided it. It looks like nothing happened. Almost nothing happened. But you did see maybe a little difference in what it looked like there, okay? So here, I'm going to divide. I'm going to go ahead and just come up over to here on one of the paths and right click. This is really important because you need to delete some parts of this division. So we're going to ungroup it. It is all grouped together in 3 pieces right now. I'm going to ungroup it and then click off of it because we want to deselect what we just did. Now, let's say I want to get rid of just this portion. I can hit the delete key. Let's say I want to move this portion out here. It's now divided from the rest, so I can do that. All right, so what does that mean for our taco? For our taco, what I recommend you do is I recommend that you create a whole circle. What I do is I create a circle and I use my shift key to pull that out. And so I've pulled it out. It's a perfect circle. I let go of shift and then I'll slightly smush it down a little bit because I want it to be sort of half of a taco. It's not a perfect half, but it'll be slightly off. See, my screen aspect ratio needs to get fixed. Okay. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is come in with a rounded rectangle. As I go over, you'll see that on the edges of that taco shell, I wanted mine to be rounded. If you want a perfect square, and maybe I'll do the demo for both. If you want a perfect square right at that edge, you can divide it up pretty easily. But in this case, if I hover above, you'll see that pink line comes up. And that pink line is really, really important because that means I am now aligned with the side of this ellipse. When I click it and I drag it down, I want to go to about halfway, and you can actually see again that next pink line that pops up to the right of my cursor. I'm going to continue dragging across until I get, and it looks like that line sort of snapped into the shape of the other one. If your outer stroke is really big, you're going to have a harder time aligning these edges, and we don't want you guys to end up with some funky shapes. One of my demos yesterday had a little funky appendage on the bottom corners because I had a larger outer stroke when I was planning it out. So I would recommend either no outer stroke or just one point so you could see it. Now it's aligned. If it's out here, it's not. It snaps in there. I'm in the half. I'm good to go. Beautiful. Now what I can do is I can divide all of this up. So at this stage, I'm going to grab both shapes. I'm going to hit the divide button. And then I'm going to go ahead and right click and ungroup again. Again, right here, I'm on my selection tool, and I'm going to click off of it. I'm going to grab this top shape, hit the delete key on my keyboard, grab this bottom shape, again, hit the delete key on my keyboard, and my taco shell is completely built. It can be any color right now, so it doesn't matter. In Illustrator, it's so easy to change that color to whatever you need. So don't forget, select the path, come on up to your fill, and then select that color. If your color doesn't appear here and doesn't make you super happy, what you can do is load the closest thing to it. I want you to go ahead and double click right here on your fill, and then you can move it around a little bit. Like let's say we wanted a little bit orangey or a little more cartoony. I can do that. I could even add that into my swatches if I wanted to. I can go ahead and I believe it'll let me do it this way. I believe I can take that color and I can just drag it right into there. So if that's a color that I would need again, I'm not sure how long that color stays though. I'm not sure if it's just for that sitting or if it'll stay as long as you log on. Okay? Double arrow, we can put that little menu back in. Hover over the top, that's my swatches. If you can't see it, window, swatches. Okay? Find those things in here that you need to be successful. Okay? I also spoke about the regular paintbrush tool. Again, that paintbrush tool is really, really important because it gives you a whole other set of options that your pen tool, for example, will not. So you can utilize both the paintbrush and the blob brush inside of making these toppings. I would say try both, see which one you like more, but don't be scared to flip to the other so you get to be a little bit more adept at trying things. Now with that brush, it is the outer stroke that matters. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with a kind of lettuce green. I may also go in and choose an oval type brush. You could change the uniformity of it, but basically with this oval brush, actually I'm going to need to change my uniformity. Let's see what that looks like. So depending on how and where I'm dragging it, you're going to see that I get different types. Like here's more of like almost like a piece of macaroni, but here's more of like a blade of grass. So it depends on where you click and drag and how fast and how far it's dragged. But the bracket key is something I really, really, really want to emphasize when we're talking about how we can add more dimension onto something. Do you see how big that is? Is my caps lock? Yeah. Okay. So right now I made the right bracket key. I made it bigger. Test it out. Okay, I undo now. I can go ahead and I can use that. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put some green right along there. Now again, remember, it's going over the taco right now. Later on I can fix that. Okay? So I'm going to come in, put some green. I might switch it out and get to some, like, maybe some brown for some taco meat. Again, change my size, maybe make some of these a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. Start to layer, move some stuff around. Come in for some tomato. Maybe this one, maybe I will go to this shape. And then I'm going to make them a little bit bigger and add a few more on there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is add some cheese. Now remember, you may want to revisit some of these other colors to make them come forward and move backwards. I'm going to get some cheese on there. Move that around a little bit. Okay, I would usually spend a little bit more time on it. But again, notice I'm going to layer. Oh, I'm going to get back into the brown. Just so that it doesn't always feel like the yellow is on top and then the red's right underneath that. It's harder to tell. Maybe I'll come back in for my lettuce. Add a little bit here and a little bit there. Just again, so it mixes up those colors. Now, once I'm pleased with it, remember a minimum of 3 colors. Once I'm pleased with what I have done, I don't like that last one. I'm going to Control Z to get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead back to my selection tool and I'm going to select this path, and that's my original taco shell. After that, I right-click, Arrange, and I'm going to bring that guy to the front. Once he's in the front, it looks like all my fillings are inside of the shell. If I wanted to put a few peeking out, I can add more now and then just leave those above it. And I can also get in here and add that outer stroke, whatever that is I'm looking for. So again, select that path, increase your outer stroke if that's what you want. You can also change that color. For example, I made mine white so there was a gap between the fillings and the taco. And then kind of go to town with where you're going. All of my testing stuff out here, I can now grab all of that with a box, hit the delete key, and get rid of it. We don't need to hold on to our tests. Okay? So that guy is done. You guys, again, do not forget to go to Windows and Pathfinder when we're looking for that divide function. Make sure that you plan your shape out carefully, and then also, if you have some time remaining, give it some character, whatever that might be. If you don't want to put a face on it, I don't care. That's perfectly fine. But try to do something else. Maybe it's a shadow. Maybe I tried using an airbrush style to give it a little bit of texture. Maybe I added another kind of topping or spilled some hot sauce on the side, etc. So again, that's what you guys are going to be doing and working on throughout today.